Hello, hello, hello. Welcome. For those of you who are watching it for the very first time, my name is James Ambroise, and on this channel we'll cover how to pay off debt faster than any other debt repayment method out there. We cover basic bookkeeping and accounting for someone who just started out a small business. We cover basic personal income tax to include a Schedule C, Schedule E, depreciation. I am also the author, creator of Ambroise Method 2.0. Ambroise Method 2.0 is a revolutionary debt repayment method that offers greater results in terms of reducing interest cost compared to debt Snowball, debt Avalanche, velocity banking. Real quick about my credentials, I have been or am a bookkeeper and accountant, QuickBooks Pro advisor, senior tax advisor, residential real estate investor, residential property manager, financial coach. And as always, before we get started with what's on the board, please allow me to shout out the name Jesus, my Lord, my God, my Creator. Thank you. All right, America, on the board we have this hypothetical scenario of somebody who filled out one of my Microsoft Excel worksheets, and the person provided me with these figures. For that, this person has a Capital One credit card, Navy World Mastercard, Plastiq personal loan. Okay, credit limit 5,000, APR 29.99, balance owed 4,580. Monthly payments charge 158.01. Availability, America, we've learned on lesson 1 that the availability is the relationship between the credit limit and the balance owed. That relationship calls for a subtraction operation. 5,000 minus 4,580, that's how we arrive at 420. Okay? Credit utilization is the relationship between the balance owed and the credit limit. That relationship calls for a division operation. 4,580 divided by 5,000, that's how we arrive at 91.60%. Okay? Payment rate charge is the relationship between the monthly payments charged and the balance owed. That relationship calls for a division operation. 158.01 divided by 4580, that's how we arrive at 3.45%. Okay? Now, on the credit cards, right now, we do not have any offers, promotion for balance transfers. So they are not offering any balance transfers. Okay? On the Plastiq personal loan, it is a 3-year personal loan, 3-year terms, and right now we're on year 1 of 3. Okay? We're doing a scenario for a single dad. His income is on a bi-weekly pay period, so the first paycheck will come on the 6th, the next paycheck will come on the 20th, and his total income for those 2 paychecks is $4,985.14. Okay? His expenses, $4,635.14. The expense, that's when you add all these balances, that's all on the board, every single one of them. Okay? Out of these expenses, $1,280 could go on a credit card. These are the expenses that could go on a credit card. The electricity, water, YouTube TV, cell phone, groceries, fuel, restaurant. They could all go on a credit card, and when you add them up, the total is $1,280. Okay? Single dad, his total debt, $19,370.07. The debt, that's when you add all these balances. Okay? 4,580, 2,400, 12,390.07. That's how we arrive at the 19,370.07. Okay? His cash flow is 350. Cash flow is the relationship between income and expenses. So 4,985.14 minus 4,635.14. That's how we arrive at $350 in cash flow. Okay. All right. question posed to me was, James, can you do 2 separate examples on how to utilize Plastiq in order to facilitate balance transfers between accounts? In other words, how to use Plastiq for balance transfers. Okay? Alright, America, today's date is October 28th, 2023. And because Plastiq is part of our advanced case study, so today we're introducing Ambroise Method 2.0 because this is a more complex case study because we're utilizing Plastiq. Okay, so it's not Ambroise Method 1.0. We cover Plastiq and Ambroise Method 2.0. Okay. Now, the question was to do 2 examples. I don't want to do 2 examples on the same day. So today we'll do 1 example, and on a different day, I'll do the second example. Okay, the different example. Okay. All right, America. I'll give you about 5-10 seconds to take a look at what's on the board, and then we're going to start with the exercise. All right, America. Now, about Plastiq. Plastiq America just went through bankruptcy. Now they have a new owner. Okay? And the new owner, the company that acquires Plastiq, is Priority Technology Holdings. Okay? They are the new owner. Okay? Plastiq still charges 2.90% as of October to do transaction on a credit card. Okay? And when you do transaction on a credit card, they will send the payment to the recipient via a wire, via ACH, or via a check. Okay? And you could have the funds expedited. When you do have the fund expedited, they'll charge you an additional fee on top of the $290 if you're going to use a credit card. Okay? So in order to facilitate to have the check, in the case of a check, to have the funds expedited, so the funds will arrive much sooner to the recipient. Okay. Now, understand in the case where you're gonna use Plastiq to have them sent out a check. Okay. So please make sure that you process the transaction on time. That way, the recipient will receive the check on time. Okay. Because remember, you're using a third party to send a check to somebody else. So they have to process the transaction. They have to cut the check. Then they have to mail the check. So, so for that reason, please make sure though that the check arrives on time to the recipient. Okay. In the past, it used to be 8 days before the recipient received the money, the funds, and in the case of a check. Okay. Now, because they just got bought out by a new company, for that reason, I'll be a little bit more careful. So I'll try to do the transaction earlier, much earlier than that. Okay. That way, you know for sure that the recipient gonna receive the money on time because we don't want to be late. Okay. So for that reason, trying to do, if you're gonna utilize Plastiq, trying to do the transaction earlier enough to where the recipient will receive the money on time. Okay, so we don't be late. Okay. Now, a few restrictions when you're using Plastiq. some of the payments, for example, there are certain payment you could do with a Visa. There are other payments that you cannot do with a Visa. You have to use a different card brand. You have to use, for example, a Mastercard. One of the example could be if you're trying to send a mortgage payment. Well, you cannot, as of right now, you cannot do a mortgage payment using a credit card now. You cannot do a mortgage payment with a Visa card. You have to use either a Mastercard or Discover. Okay? Now, as of February 2023, right now we're in October, Plastiq no longer uses, you cannot use American Express to do transaction with Plastiq. Okay? So, these are some of the things you have to be aware of. And before, right now, since they just got acquired by a new company, please make sure that you do go on their website and do your own due diligence, in case something changes, because again, like I mentioned earlier, a new company is the owner now. So make sure that, you have the latest information. Okay, do your due diligence before you start doing transaction with Plastiq. Okay. All right. Now, as far as rent payment, if you're gonna use a credit card for rent payment, okay, obviously Plastiq charges 2.9% if you're gonna use a credit card, and right now they have some competition in America. There is a Bilt World Elite Mastercard. This Bilt Mastercard is issued and administered by Wells Fargo. And right now for rent payment, okay, say you want to put your rent payment on a credit card. For rent payment, that company, okay, if you have the Bilt Mastercard, they do not charge any transaction fees, okay, to send a rent payment. Okay, for Plastiq, when you use a credit card, it's 2.9%. For this company, if you have that credit card, no transaction fees, okay? And you may have to do at least 5 transactions in order to take full advantage of some of the reward programs that they have, okay? So be mindful of that. If you're using Plastiq, they'll charge you 2.90%. Meanwhile, there's another company out there that will not charge you any fees, okay, in order to pay your rent with a credit card, okay? So they do have some competition, okay? This Wells Fargo, well, Wells Fargo is not the owner, but Wells Fargo issued the card, and Wells Fargo is administering the card for Bilt World Mastercard, okay, well, for Bilt, okay? So be mindful of that. So they do have some competitions. All right, America, I'll give you about 5-10 seconds to take a look at what's on the board. And today we're doing lesson 9. Lesson 9. So 5-10 seconds, America, then we're going to start. All right, America. Again, folks, question posed to me was, can you do 2 separate examples using Plastiq? I don't want to do 2 separate examples, so the lesson doesn't is not too long. So we'll do one example today, and another day I'll do another example, okay, using Plastiq. Okay, So one today, one on another lesson. All right, America. For our method, from prior lesson, we've learned that Ambroise Method 1.0 calls for a series of steps, and those steps needs to be taken at least once a month. These steps are segregate, compare, transfer, repeat, and there might be some conditions, some exceptions, some restriction to the strategy. And these items are above the line. There goes the line. And we're trying to stay above the line for as long as we can before we go downstairs, before we go below the line. And below the line, you have to answer some questions, America. Can you use cash flow, or can we make a large payment? And then you have to answer the what. W-H-T. What? W, which account or accounts. H, how much of a payment. And T, to pay off which debt. Okay? These are the steps for Ambroise Method 2.0. And again, the steps are segregate, compare, transfer, repeat, cash flow or large payment, and then insert the what. Which account, how much of a payment to pay off which debt. Okay? Now, segregate. How do we segregate America? We segregate by account type. Okay? That's looking at the list of debt, and we're trying to segregate them by account types. So we want the revolve, and I prefer the revolving credit accounts on top. I prefer the installment credit accounts at the bottom. So on the board, we have Capital One credit card. That's revolving credit account. We have Navy War Mastercard credit card. That's revolving credit account. Then we have Plastiq Personal Loan. That's installment credit account. So the list is perfect. The revolvings are on top, just like I prefer them. The installments is in the bottom. Okay? So as far as segregation, the list is perfect. Okay? Next, America, we compare. And how do we compare? We compare by APR. Okay? Between account types. So we have 2 credit cards, 1 personal loan. Okay? Between the 2 credit cards, we compare by APR, and we like to list them highest APR on top, lowest APR at the bottom by account type. So $29.99 is bigger than $15.99. So $29.99 is listed first, then $15.99 is listed second by account type. Plastiq Personal Loan is installment credit account. So by account type, we only have 1 personal loan. So Plastiq is by itself at the bottom. Okay? So as far as comparing, the list is perfect. And when we're comparing America, we try to identify the enemy, the troublemaker. The account with the highest APR, in this particular example, is the enemy. The account with the highest APR, in this particular example, is the troublemaker. So for that reason, Capital One is the enemy. So Capital One is the troublemaker for this example. Okay? So next, we transfer. And we transfer between current existing accounts. Okay? So we use the same account that we already have. And we're trying to execute balance transfer between the same account that we already have. Okay? And how do we transfer, America? We transfer, we're trying to relocate balances from the highest APR account which is Capital One. We're trying to relocate that balance to the lowest APR account. Okay, so in this example, the highest APR account is $29.99. The lowest APR account is $8.99. Okay, so we're trying to relocate balances from that account to this account. But this account, Plastiq personal loan, is a personal loan. We cannot add to it. We cannot add balance to a personal loan. Okay? So for that reason, we cannot use Plastiq personal loan. Okay? So now we have to move from the highest APR account to the next lowest APR account. So in this case, the next lowest one is Navy World Mastercard. Okay? So now we're going to try to relocate balance from this high APR account, Capital One, to the Navy World Mastercard. Okay? But James, how are we going to relocate balances from Capital One to Navy World when you told us that Navy World is not offering any balance transfers? Okay? So we have a little issue here. They are not offering any balance transfer. So how then can we do balance transfers? Okay? For that reason, America, one of the tools that we have at our disposal is what I call artificial type of balance transfers. Artificial type of balance transfer. Okay? America, an artificial type of balance transfer for our purpose is using unconventional, creative ways of executing balance transfers without the help of the big bank, the big creditors. So you don't need Chase to do balance transfers. In this example, you don't need Navy to do balance transfers. You don't need Capital One to do balance transfers in this particular example. You don't need Bank of America to do balance transfers. And again, we could still execute our own balance transfers without the help of the big bank, the big creditors. Okay? By employing artificial type of balance transfers. And on our method, we have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, we have 5 of them on our method. Okay? We have Ambroise's charge pay technique, normal. Then I have another variation of this, Ambroise's charge pay technique, inducement. We have Plastiq, that's what we're going to use today, Plastiq. Okay? Then we have Melio, or Melio, however you say that. Then we have similar entities. Okay? From prior lessons, okay, when we're getting a head count, we have Ambroise charge pay technique, that's 1. Ambroise charge pay technique inducement, Ambroise charge pay technique normal, that's 2. Plastiq, that's 3. Melio, that's 4. Similar entities, that's 5. Inside the artificial type of balance transfer, America, we have at least five different ways we could do artificial type of balance transfers. In addition to the artificial type of balance transfers, we have the normal type of balance transfer that we covered from prior lesson. That's 6. Then we have mix and match. That's 7. So in total, we have at least 7 different ways to execute balance transfers on our method. Okay? And again, today, we're going to utilize Plastiq. In the past, we've done normal balance transfers. In the past, from past lesson, we've done mix and match balance transfers. Today, we're going to cover Plastiq. Okay? All right. So now, how do we use Plastiq for balance transfers? Plastiq America will not allow you to send a payment from one credit card to another credit card. Remember in our example, we're trying to relocate balances from Capital One, which is a credit card, to Navy World Mastercard, which is another credit card. Okay? So using Plastiq, you cannot do transaction from credit card to credit card. Okay? That's a no-go. Cannot do it. Okay? Well, James, how then are we going to be able to transfer any balances from one credit card to another card when you're telling us that Plastiq does not allow that kind of transaction because it falls under the category of debt product for them. And one of the restrictions, you cannot pay one debt product with another debt product. Okay? That's one of the restrictions. Okay? However, Plastiq will allow you to do transaction between a credit card to a mortgage. Okay? Well, a mortgage is also a debt product. So they will make an exception to allow you to utilize your credit card to make a payment to a mortgage. Okay? So be mindful of that. All right? On our board, we do not have any mortgages because the person is a renter, okay? And their house rent is $2,500 and the landlord wants check, okay? So no mortgages on the board, but Plastiq allow you to make payment, to make rent payment. So they will allow that, okay? So for that reason, we're gonna do, our goal, America, is to do transfers between two credit cards, but Plastiq is now allowing to do transfer between two credit cards. So we're going to use a workaround, okay, in order to still facilitate balance transfers between two credit cards, even though they don't allow it. So that's why we're gonna do it via a workaround. Okay? And what we're going to use instead, we're going to use the rent, okay, to facilitate the transfer between those two credit cards, okay? And the rent, again, is $2,500, all right? So now, this is what we're going to do. We're going to make a transaction using the lower APR account, which is Navy World Mastercard, okay? America, take a look at the availability. We have 420 in the Capital One. We have 4,500 in the Navy World Mastercard. So we have room, okay, to make a payment to take care of the house rent, okay? Now, with Plastiq America, you could use Plastiq to make payment not only to credit, to not only for rent payment, you could also use Plastiq for utilities, you could also use Plastiq for tuitions, the list goes on and on. But for our particular example, we're gonna use Plastiq for rent payment. Remember, they are not just limited to rent payment. You could use them, like our Ford mentioned, for more items than just rent payment, okay? But we're gonna use it for rent payment right now, okay? So now, the way it's going to work, America, it's going to be the Navy World Mastercard. Remember, they will allow you to use a credit card to pay your rent. So we're gonna use the Navy to pay the rent. Okay, and the rent is $2,500. $500. Okay. All right. So now, since we're going to use Navy Federal to pay the rent, and we know Plastiq charges a fee, and the fee to use to facilitate the transaction is 2.9%. Okay, if they're gonna send them a check, so now let's figure out how much the fee is going to be. Okay, so and again, we're gonna charge Navy Federal the amount of the rent, which is $2,500. Okay, but Plastiq charges $290 to do the transaction. So let's figure out how much that is, America. So 2,500 times the fee, 2.90%. Okay. Let me grab my calculator to see how much the fee itself is. So 2,500 times 2.90% is $72.50. Okay. Let me put it somewhere here. The fee is $72.50. Okay. All right. So now, what's going to happen now? The balance for the Navy Federal will get increased by the amount of the rent, which is $2,500, and will also get increased by the fee, okay, which is $72.50. Okay. So now, Navy. So right now we're not dealing with Capital One, so Capital One will stay the same, America. So Capital One the credit limit stays the same, 5,000. The APR stays the same, $29.99. Remember, right now we are not touching Capital One. All we're dealing with right now is Navy Federal. The balance owed, $4,580. Monthly payments charged, $158.01. Availability, 420. Credit utilization, 9160. And payment rate charge, 3.45. Okay? So next, we did say that we're going to touch Navy Federal. So next is Navy Federal. Okay. Credit limit, 6,900. The APR, 15.99. Okay. The balance owed. Now, we did say we're going to pay using the credit card to pay the rent. The rent was $2,500. The original balance was $2,400. So it will be $2,400 plus the new payment, the new charge, which is $2,500, plus the fee that Plastiq is charging in order to facilitate the transaction, $72.50. Okay. So now Navy Federal new balance will be $4,972.50. Okay. The monthly payments charged Remember, they're charging, in the case of a flat fee, 2.30% of the balance owed. So 2.30 times 4,972.50. Now the new payment is 114,37. Okay? The availability is credit limit minus balance owed. So 6,900 minus 4,972.50. The availability now is 1927.50. Okay? Credit utilization is balance owed divided by credit limit. So 4,972.50 divided by 6,900. Okay? So we at 7207. And the payment rate charge is 230 like we knew it was, but let's do it just for good measure. Payment rate charge is monthly payment charge, which is 114.37 divided by balance owed, which is 4,972.50. Okay, so we should have the 230 like we knew it was. Okay, all right. Best Egg personal loan. Again, we did not touch Best Egg, so Best Egg will stay the same. 15,000. $899, 12,390 or 476, 93. Availability, it's a personal loan. The availability doesn't matter. And payment rate charge, let's put it on the board just for good measure, 385%. Okay? All right. And again, America, that's using Navy Federal to pay off, to take care of the rent, 2,500. So Navy Federal will get increased by the 2,500. Navy Federal will also get increased by the fee charged, 72.50. Altogether, the Navy Federal got increased all the way to 4,972.50. Okay. Now, that was sort of a transfer, because we move money to take care of this house rent. Okay. As part of our artificial balance transfer. Okay. So now all these accounts, as far as the transfer part, at least one leg of it is done. Okay. So now that we're done with items that are above the line, okay, we cannot do any more transactions. Okay. So now, America, we're gonna go downstairs. And downstairs is to answer some questions. Okay? Can we use cash flow or can we make a large payment? Okay. Single dad did not receive any income tax refund during this period. Single dad did not receive any bonus checks during this period. Single dad did not receive any additional funds that will represent a large payment. Okay? So for that reason, there's no large payment, so we're gonna use cash flow. So now, America, we're gonna try to figure out how much our new cash flow is. Okay? The account that got affected in this particular artificial type of transfer is Navy Federal. So Capital One stays the same, 158.01, 158.01. We're looking at the monthly payments charge now. Navy World Mastercard, it was 55.20. It went up to 114.37. Best Egg, the monthly payment charge for 76.93 stays for 76.93. Okay, so the only account, okay, where the amount changes is the Navy Federal. Okay, originally on the monthly payments charge it was 55.20. So now it is 114.37. So now it's 55.20 minus 114.37. Okay, so our cash flow America go down by 59 17. Okay, now our original cash flow was 350. So now our new cash flow is 350 minus the 59.17. Okay, so now America, our new cash flow is 290.83. Okay, remember America, from past lessons, we're gonna get to that a little later on the lesson. Okay, so now our cash flow is 290.83. Okay, so now that we've determined what our cash flow is, the next steps in running Ambroise Method 1.0 is to insert the what, which account or accounts, how much of a payment, and to pay off which debt. Okay. Now, America, on our method, you know that we always look to determine which account gonna be first in line, or the account that offer greater results in terms of reducing interest costs. So first in line slash greater result. Okay, and from past lessons, we've learned that it is the account that has the highest APR. Well, let's take a look. On the board, as far as APR, we have 29.99, 15.99, 8.99. So the highest APR account on the board is the Capital One, 29.99. So for greater results, that would be Capital One. Because when we send payment to the higher APR account, we achieve greater results in terms of reducing interest costs. Okay, so Capital One. Okay. America, you know, on our method, we always look for the account that offer us greater liquidity. Okay. So next in line, or greater liquidity. Okay. Now on the board, we have a Capital One credit card. The credit card, only $1,280 could go on a credit card when the expense is a lot higher. The expense is $4,635. So the credit card is limited, so we cannot use Capital One for liquidity. The next account we have on the board is also Navy Federal, and it's also a credit card. Okay? And again, only $1,280 could go on a credit card when the expense is a lot higher. So we cannot use Navy Federal for liquidity because it's limited. Okay? And on the board, we have a Plastiq personal loan. It is a personal loan. It cannot offer us liquidity, greater liquidity. So in this case, America, our regular checking account will offer us liquidity. Okay. All right. So far we identified the account that for greater results in terms of reducing interest costs. That's Capital One. So far we identified the account for greater liquidity. Okay. So that's checking account. And on our method, America, we normally look to identify the account for movements of income and expenses. Okay? So movements of income and expenses. Okay? And for movement of income and expenses, we generally look for the account that offers us the account with the higher APR. Okay? So we could reduce the high APR even further when we have income coming in and expenses going out. Okay? So it's usually the account with the higher APR. But which account has the higher APR? Has the highest APR? We have Capital One, 29.99. We have Navy Federal, 15.99. We have Plastiq, 8.99. So the account that has the highest APR is Capital One for movement. Okay? So now we have our three accounts. But America, on the board, we have Capital One for greater results already. And we also have Capital One, the same Capital One for movement. Okay? So now, America, we have what I refer to as redundancy. Okay? So we have Capital One at two places. Okay? We're not going to send payment to a Capital One and send payment to the same Capital One. So now we have redundancy. Okay? So we do not need to use two Capital One. So in this case, we're not going to use this movement. So we're going to take it off the board because we already have Capital One on the list. Okay? So movement will be gone. All right? Remember, on our method, we always look for these three accounts. Okay? The only time we don't use one is if we have redundancy. Okay? We already have Capital One. Okay? All right. Now, America, let's try to figure out our numbers. Okay? As far as which account, we have Capital One as greater results. We have the checking account as liquidity. Okay? Now let's figure out our numbers. The regular payment, bills that could go on a credit card, cash flow, absorption. Okay? All right. The regular payment for Capital One is $158.01. The bills that could go on a credit card, remember Capital One is a credit card. And we said the bills that could go on a credit card in this particular example is $1,280. Okay? Okay? cash flow, remember America from prior lesson, cash flow is better served in the account that has the highest APR. Well, Capital One has the highest APR, so cash flow gonna go to Capital One. And our new cash flow was 290.83. Okay. And absorptions, we're going to leave absorption alone for now. Okay. Now let's figure out how much funds is going to go into the checking account. Okay. Remember, single dad, his total income was $4,985.14. To figure out how much the checking account is going to keep is the total income minus all these amounts. Okay. So 4,985.14 minus 158.01 minus 1280 minus 290.83. Okay, so now we have 32.56.30 that's going into the checking account. Okay. Now, America, remember earlier the goal of making the payment using the Navy Federal to pay off the house rent. The goal was to eventually send that payment to the higher APR account. Okay? Remember our Plastiq Workaround. Okay? So it was Navy Federal, Plastiq, and then Plastiq takes care of the rent. Okay? And the rent was $2,500. Okay? Our goal really, when we do a normal transfer, it's usually moving balances from the higher APR account, which is Capital One, to the lower APR account, which in this case was Navy Federal. So you would have been moving 25. So the Capital One will be reduced by 2,500, and the Navy Federal will get increased by 2,500. Okay. This is when we do our normal, when we do balance transfer the normal way. Okay. We relocate balances from the higher APR. In this case, the 4580 will get decreased by 2,500. Okay. So we'll move it to the lower APR. Okay. So this is low, this is high. Okay. This is when we're doing the normal balance transfer. Okay. But remember earlier, Plastiq won't allow you to do transaction from credit card to another credit card. Okay. So in that case, we had to use the rent. Okay. As our workaround. Okay. So the rent, America, already got taken care of. Okay. When we send the payment from Navy, when Plastiq sent the check to the landlord for 2,500, the rent got taken care of already. So that payment got taken care of. Okay? Which means that the checking account now, because the rent got paid already. Okay? The checking account now supposed to take care of just the remainder bills, okay, that you need cash for. The remainder bills would have been, because remember, all these could go on a credit card, so the remainder bill would have been the allowance, $50, the prepaid college, $115, Navy Federal, the new payment now is $114.37, and Plastiq for $76.93. Okay, so we don't need to keep the funds inside the checking account, the 2,500, because the rent already got taken care of already. Okay, so for that reason, America, the Capital One, which is the account that offers greater results, will absorb some of that funds. Okay? And real quick, let's figure out how much needs to remain inside the checking account. Remember, only for bills that could be paid with a regular checking account. So we have the $50 plus that's allowance for his son, prepaid college $115 plus Navy Federal, the new amount $114.37 plus Plastiq personal loan for $76.93. The only amount really that needs to remain inside the checking account is $756.30. Okay? Which means now, because remember, we have total $32.56.30. So $32.56.30 minus the bills that the checking account needs to take care of, which is $756.30. So now Capital One will absorb the rent money, which is $2,500. So for that reason, we're going to relocate $2,500 from the checking account into Capital One. We're not gonna move the whole thing, we're gonna move some of it. And how much we're gonna move? Just $2,500 off of it. Okay? So, and again, $32.56.30 minus the $2,500, that's how we arrive at the $756.30, because that's all we need. Remember, when we did the transaction again from the Navy Federal using Plastiq, Plastiq sent a check to the landlord already, so the rent already got taken care of already. So now we have an additional $2,500 inside the checking account that needs to be moved to the other account, which is Capital One. Okay, so that's how we do our workaround. Okay, in order to facilitate the transfer. Okay. All right. So now our new amount for Capital One will be the total 158.01 plus 1280 plus 290 plus 2500. So let's run it. 158.01 plus 1280 plus 290.83 plus 2500. So the total for Capital One, okay, is $4,000 $228.84. And the checking account will keep only $756.30. Okay, you see that, America? That's how we accomplish our balance transfers using Plastiq. Okay, we have to kind of do a workaround. Okay, by paying the rent, because remember, Plastiq won't allow us to do credit card to credit card. Okay, because these are two debt product. Okay, so we had to do this workaround by using the rent instead. Okay, so after everything said and done, the capital one will get reduced by at least the 2,500. At least. Okay. Now, you see how much money we have going on into the capital one, America? 4,228.84. The balance is only 45.80. Okay? So 45.80, once we actually make the payment, the 45.80 will get reduced by the 4,228.84. And then you'll get increased again by the amount that needs to go on the credit card, which was 12.80. Okay? So it'll be 45.80 minus the 42.28.80. That's it, the income coming in, and then you have the expenses going out, and the expenses will be the bills that could be paid with a credit card, which is 12.80. Okay? All right, America. I'll give you about 5-10 seconds to take a look at what's on the board, and then we're going to continue with the exercise. All right, America. So this is our Plastiq Workaround. Okay? They won't allow us to do transfers between two credit cards. So in that case, we were forced to use a workaround by sending the payment to the house rent first, and then so that the account with the higher APR will absorb the payment amount, the rent payment amount, which was 2,500 from the checking account. Okay. And again, folks, this is advanced case studies. Okay. And Ambroise Method 2.0. Covers the more advanced stuff. Okay. For some of you, if you have to kind of watch this thing and watch it again, after a while, it should all come together. Okay. So, and again, we use Navy Federal, going to Plastiq, and then Plastiq sent out a check, in this particular example, to the landlord for the rent payment. Okay, which was 2,500. So now now the rent payment got taken care of. So now we're gonna have an additional 2,500, because remember, we paid the rent with the credit card. Okay? So the funds that would normally be earmarked for the rent in the checking account now will get moved to the Capital One, which is the account with the higher APR. Okay? And that's the 2,500. All right? All right? So that's how we accomplish our balance transfers between accounts. Okay? All right. Now, how then let's talk about the workflow, because we have to answer now to pay off which debt. So the workflow. Remember, single dad's total income for the month is $4,985.14. Let's assume the two paychecks are equal. So $4,985.14 divided by 2. So on the paycheck that's coming on the 6th, and a paycheck that comes on the 20th. So on the first paycheck, he has $2,492.57, and on the following paycheck, same amount, $2,492.57. Okay, let's take out the first paycheck first. First paycheck, touchdown, your checking account. Okay, so now where does the money go? Okay, this is when in America you have to pay attention to the due date, especially for bills, expenses where you have to use cash for or cash equivalent. Okay, all these could go on a credit card. Okay, so we don't need cash for those, or cash equivalent. The allowance for his son, he's gonna give his son $50, and he's gonna sell that money to his son on the 22nd of the month. Okay, it's $50 on the 22nd. We have a paycheck coming up on the 20th, so before the payment is due. So that paycheck is large enough to cover the $50. So this paycheck gonna come in first. So 20th is before 22nd. So that paycheck should be able to cover the bills that's coming in 2 days later, which is $50 on the allowance for his son. Okay, so that one would not be an issue. The next item that we have where you need cash for, cash equivalent, is an ACH for the prepaid college tuition. This one comes on the 26th, and it's $115. Okay. The paycheck, we have a paycheck on the 6th, a paycheck on the 20th. The paycheck on the 20th is large enough to where you'll take care of this item that's coming up 6 days later. Okay? So because this item comes after the paycheck, that would not be an issue. Okay? And again, the check is large enough to cover the $115. Okay? Then finally, we have the Navy. Navy's on the 28th. That's towards the end of the month, so that shouldn't be any issue. The new amount, $114.37. That paycheck is big enough to cover that. The Plastiq for $76.93 on the 28th. That paycheck is large enough to cover that. So there shouldn't be, we have no issue with the items where you need the account that offer greater liquidity. We won't have to have any issue with those items. Okay? So now going back to the house rent, the house rent got taken care of already when we use Plastiq to send the funds to the landlord. So the landlord already by that time, or at a later time, the landlord will receive his $2,500. Okay, so that's not going to be a problem. Okay, so now we have no problem with the items that's coming up due, especially the ones where you're gonna need cash for. Okay, so in this case then, on the first paycheck, 2004.92.57, gonna touch down the checking account, and the fund's gonna go, of course, to the Capital One, but how much? And we say the Capital One gonna receive 4228.84, but the check, the paycheck is only 2004.92. Capital One needs at least 4,228. So the Capital One gonna receive the entire paycheck. Okay? And the account that offers greater liquidity, which is the checking account, is not gonna receive anything. So the checking account will keep 0. Okay? Now, on the next paycheck, the checking account did not receive anything on the first paycheck, so now the checking account will get the total 75630. Okay? And Capital One will receive the difference, or the remainder. Okay? Remember, Capital One total needs to be 4228.84, 4228.84 minus 2492.57. So now Capital One will receive on the second paycheck 1736.27. Okay? And when you add these two up, this should equal the total for the second paycheck, 2492.57. So let's run it just for good measure. 1736.27 plus 75630. Sure enough, the total is 2492.57. Perfect. Okay? All right, America, this is the workflow. Okay? Once you determine your numbers, okay, you know which account received how much on which paycheck. So our process is complete. Okay? For this given month, we are done. Okay? All right, America, I'll give you about 5-10 seconds to take a look at what's on the board, and then we're going to continue with the exercise. Okay? All right, America. Now, as you could see, just like I told you guys from a prior lesson, that we are not handicapped by what the big bank, the big creditors could do for us. From the initial example, the big banks is not offering any balance transfers. Okay? Meanwhile, we have 4,580 on a higher APR. Remember, we're always going to try to move whatever balance that we have from a higher APR to a lower one. Okay? Because on the Navy World Mastercard, we have availability. Okay? So again, even when the big bank, the big creditors are not offering balance transfers, America, we could still utilize our own balance transfers. We do not need the help of the big bank, the big creditors, in order to execute balance transfers. That's why on our method, again, we have what we call artificial types of balance transfers. Okay? And artificial types of balance transfers are unconventional, creative ways of executing balance transfers, again, without the help of the big bank, the big creditors. Okay? On our method, we have some of them that are free, that don't cost us anything, and we have some of them that do cost us something. Okay? Because remember, on our method, we hate to have to babysit balances from higher APR account. Okay? Look at how much we got going into the Capital One again. $4,228.84. The balance is only $45.80. Okay? After everything's said and done, again, it's going to be the $45.80 minus how much we got going into the Capital One. $42.28.84. Okay, let's do that real quick. $45.80 plus the payment, $42.28.84. So we'll be at $351.16. Okay. America. Imagine you were going to be charged 29.99% on $48.80. And at some point during the process, you're only going to be charged $351.16 at $29.99. Okay? And then when you start making the payment again, it's going to get increased, because remember now you have to take care of those bills that could go on a credit card with it. So now it's going to get increased by the $12.80. So 16, 13, 16 at the end of it all, when you start paying those expenses, because you know expense is going to increase that balance. Okay. All right. And again, at some point, you're only going to be paying interest only on $351.16, and at some point, you're going to start paying interest on $1,631.16 total, as opposed to $4,580. Okay. Now, it's clearly to see, America, how the other debt repayment method, again, would never be able to compete with our method, Ambroise Method 2.0. Okay. Remember, these things, America, are being computed average daily. Okay, and credit card is mostly average daily. Okay, and our goal in this particular scenario was to reduce our average. Okay, the lower the balance is, so we reduce our average at some point to $351.16. Well, we reduce the balance to $351.16. Okay, which in turn reduces the average, okay? So the interest is being computed on the average. As you could see how much money we are saving in any given month. Nobody in America is doing that kind of stuff. And today's date is October 28th. So as of October 28th, 2023, nobody in America is doing that kind of stuff. Nobody. All right, America. I'll give you about 5-10 seconds to take a look at what's on the board, and then we're going to continue with the exercise. All right, America. And on our last step, on the what, which account, we know is going to be Capital One as the account for greater liquidity, and the checking account for, Capital One for greater results, and the checking account for greater liquidity. How much? Capital One 4,228.84. Checking account will keep 756.30. To pay off which debt? To pay off which debt, we know that the Capital One will take care of all these bills. Then that could go on a credit card. The Capital One will absorb the house rent because the house rent got taken care of earlier. So and the checking account, or Capital One will also take care of, absorb the cash flow. Well, you send the cash flow to the Capital One account. Okay. So when we add them all up, 150.01, that's the minimum payment for the Capital One. 1280, these are bills that could go on a credit card. All these. Okay. 290.83, that's the new cash flow. And 2,500, Capital will absorb that 2,500. Okay. And the checking account will take care of, again, we're doing to pay off which debt now. The checking account will take care of the allowance, so that's $50. The checking account will take care of the prepaid college, that's $115. The checking account will take care of that Capital One, the Navy Federal. The new amount is $114.37. And the checking account will take care of the best egg, which is $476.93. So we got the allowance. That's the checking account. Prepaid. Prepaid. 114.37, that's the Navy. Checking account will take care of all those. And for 76.93 is a best egg. Okay. So when we add all of them up, it should be the 75630. And again, let's run it just for good measure. Okay. $50. plus 115 plus 114.37 plus 476.30. Okay. 114.30, $50 plus 115 plus 114.37 plus 476.93. All right, perfect. 756.30. Perfect. Okay. So the checking account will take care of these four. Okay. Now, the money is now inside the checking account. 756.30. Remember, checking account will take care of the Navy. Checking account will take care of the Plastiq. Navy is due on the 28th. Plastiq is due on the 28th. But the money touched down the checking account on the 20th. So do not wait. Even though Navy is due on the 28th and Plastiq is due on the 28th as a due date, do not wait on the 28th to send the payment, okay? As soon as, on the second paycheck now, as soon as the 756 touch down the checking account on the 20th, send the payment on the 20th, okay, to Navy Federal. Send the payment on the 20th to Plastiq, okay? All right? Because remember now, situational awareness. On the checking account, you're probably earning 0% or maybe 1, 2, 3%. Doesn't matter how much you're earning on the checking account. You know, let's say you're earning, let's just say you're earning 1.5%. Okay? Or less. Meanwhile, you have the Navy Federal charging you $15.99%, and you have the Plastiq charging 8.99%. Okay? Checking account, say you're earning between 0 to 1.5%. Okay? So don't keep no money in a checking account where you're earning 0 to 1.5% when they're charging you somewhere else $15.99 and $8.99. So for that reason, don't keep the money inside the checking account on the second paycheck. Okay? So send it, okay, to the $15.99, send it to the $8.99. Okay? Because $15.99 and $8.99 is much higher than 0% if you're only earning 0% or if you're earning all the way up to 1.5%. Okay? So send the money quickly. As soon as it touches down the checking account, send the money quickly to the Navy Federal. Send the money quickly to the Plastiq on the same day, on the 20th. Okay? So the checking account should only have the $50 remaining and the 115 remaining. Okay? For the allowance or for the prepaid. Okay? So about, let's see, 50, this would be 65. Let's run it. So 165. Okay? This is all that should be remaining inside the checking account. Okay? And on the 22nd, his son allowance is $50. From the checking, you sell the $50. Okay? And prepaid college, ACH payment. Okay? So the company that administered the prepaid college will withdraw the money from the checking account, which is the 115. Okay? On the 26th. All right? So that's how you get it done. Again, the most important thing is to transfer the money quickly to the Navy Federal to make the payment for the Navy Federal, which was 114.37, and to send the payment quickly to the Plastiq, which was 476.93. Okay. And again, do not keep the money inside the checking account where you're earning 0 to 1.5% when you're being charged $15.99 on the Navy and $8.99 on the best step. Okay. All right. Move the money quickly as soon as you touch down your checking account. All right, America, I'll give you about 5-10 seconds to take a look at this real quick, and then we're going to continue with the exercise. All right, America. We did a balance transfer using Plastiq Workaround. Okay. Well, America, let's see how much money we were able to save for doing the balance transfer. And we also will be comparing that with cash flow because, like I mentioned from a past lesson, we have other method that only uses cash flow. Okay. So it's going to be balance transfers versus cash flow. Okay. Let's take care of the balance transfer portions first. Okay. Earlier, we used Plastiq as a workaround in order to facilitate the balance transfer. And the balance transfer was for the amount of the house rent, which was on the 2,500 bucks. So capital one, 2,500 bucks, and out of the 4228.84, the 2,500 was inside of 40. So when we sent 2,500 to the capital one, let's see how much we're able to save for the month. Okay, so when we sent 2,500 to capital one is charging us $29.99. Okay, so times 21.99% divided by 12 to see how much we're able to save for the month. Okay, on the balance transfer portion. 2,500 times 29.99% divided by 12. Okay. We should be at 62.48. Okay. For the month. That's if we didn't do anything, if we left the money inside the capital one. Okay. But we did move the money from capital one to Navy Federal. That's why the balance of the Navy Federal increased from 24 all the way to 49.72.50. It was the 24 plus the 2,500, okay, plus the fee. And we're going to take care of the fee a little later. So Navy Federal and Navy Federal is charging $15.99. Because remember, we relocate balances from the capital one to the Navy Federal. That's why the Navy Federal went up. Okay. By using one of our artificial method tools, which was Plastiq. So 2,500 times 15.99%, okay, divided by 12. So now we're at 33.31, okay, for the month. All right. Now, if we would have left 2,500 inside the capital one, it would have cost us 62.48. But now since we move it to the Navy Federal, it now costs us 33.31. Okay? So the difference is what we're saving in interest cost. So interest savings is the 62.48 minus 33.31. Okay, so we're saving for the month 29.17. Okay, per month. All right, that's for doing a balance transfer, for relocating some of the funds from the Capital One after the payment get applied, okay, to the Navy Federal. Okay, because remember we have a large payment going into the Capital One, 42.28. Okay, and the 2,500 is included inside that payment. All right, now, like I mentioned earlier, we have the debt repayment method, mainly debt snowball and debt avalanche that only uses cash flow. Okay, so let's see how much debt snowball group will be saving for the month. So we have debt snowball. Okay, remember that snowball group wants to attack the lowest balance. So from our original example, the lowest balance, so we have 4,580, 2,400, and 12,000. So the lowest balance is 2,400. Okay, so that snowball group, this group will send cash flow. Our original cash flow was 350, so they'll send cash flow, which was 350, to the lowest balance. So the 2,400 will get reduced by the 350. Okay, but how much are they charging on the lowest balance account? On the lowest balance account, which is Navy World, they're charging $15.99. So when you send payment to those accounts, America, you are saving what they are charging you. Okay, $15.99. Divided by 12. Okay, so let's see how much that is. So they'll send cash flow to the lower APR, and in the process ended up saving what they're charging. So 350 times 15.99% divided by 12. So that snowball would be at 463 for the month. Okay, now we have another debt repayment method that uses cash flow only, just like that snowball. That avalanche also uses cash flow. Okay, so now that avalanche. Okay, and same thing, that avalanche will use cash flow. The original cash flow is 350, and that avalanche group will send cash flow to the higher APR account. So they'll send 350. The higher APR account is Capital One, so they'll send 350 to lower this balance, which is 4,580. So 4,580 will get reduced by 350. But how much they charging on the Capital One? $29.99. Okay, so every time you send payment to that account, you're saving what they are charging you. They're charging you $29.99. The payment will make you'll save $29.99. So 350 times $29.99% divided by 12 for the month. Okay, so let's see. 350 times $29.99% divided by 12. So we are at 875. Then again, these two groups uses cash flow. Okay. So if we have balance transfers versus cash flow. When we execute the balance transfers, the artificial balance transfer by utilizing Plastiq, okay, we were able to save $29.17 for the month. That's for balance transfers. That Snowball and that Avalanche, these two groups only uses cash flow. And they are respectively saving $466 and $875 for the month. So America, where are you saving more money? Using a debt repayment method that only gonna save you $466 for the month in the case of debt Snowball. Using another debt repayment method that will only save you $875 for the month in interest savings in the case of debt Avalanche, versus using using balance transfer that will save you $29.17 for the month. $29.17, only $466. $29.17, only $875. Okay? So you are better off in this particular example to do balance transfers. Balance transfer is more beneficial. Okay? Now, on our method, America, balance transfers, this is transfers, and cash flow, that's where cash flow resides, and to pay off which debt. Because remember our tack on our method. Okay, so we have balance transfers and we also have cash flow. Okay, we still have transfers on our method, we'll still have cash flow on our method. So again, from past lesson, the T is for transfer, A is alternative account, and C is for cash flow. Okay, these are all the different jobs, the different elements, the different assignments. Okay, we'll cover all that from past lessons. Okay. Transfers and cash flow on our method, America, like I mentioned from prior lesson, they are not in competition with each other. Okay? They work in concert with each other. They work in conjunction with each other. But if they were in competition with each other, balance transfer would be more beneficial to do. 29.17 versus 466, 29.17 versus 875. So 29.17 is a larger savings. So balance transfer would be more beneficial to do. But again, America, on our method, they are not in competition with each other. They work together. They work in concert with each other. They work in conjunction with each other on our method. Okay? And as you could see again, these guys will not be able to compete. Alright? Alright, America. I'll give you about 5-10 seconds to take a look at what's on the board, and then we're going to continue with the exercise. Alright, America. I'm going to start erasing some stuff. Whenever you're doing balance transfers and the balance transfer was not free, remember we had to utilize Plastiq, and Plastiq charges 2.9% of the balance transfer amount, which was 2,500. So 2,500 times 2.99%, 2.90%. The fee was 72.50. Okay. You always have to figure out, America, how long it's going to take to recoup the fee that you were forced to pay in order to execute the balance transfer. Okay, and our formula to figure out how long it's going to take to recoup is the fee in dollar amount, which is 72.50. That's how long to recoup. How long to recoup the fee. Okay, it's the fee itself, 72.50 in dollar amount, divided by how much we're able to save on the transfer itself, which was 29.17. Okay, so now 72.50 divided by 29.17. So it should take us 2.49 months. Okay, so that's how long it's going to take us to recoup the fee. After 2 months, we're completely caught up. Okay, so everything else, we're in the clear. That's more savings for us, more savings for us, more savings for us, because we already recouped the fee in 2.49 months. Okay, which means since it's only a few months, that was a good transfer to execute. Okay, all right. Let's start erasing some stuff. All right. To my financial coaches, I'm talking about every single financial coach in America. Okay. Let's do a little history on some of the deficiencies and pitfalls that folks used to have in the past with debt snowball and debt avalanche. Okay, so debt snowball. Let's start with debt snowball first. With debt snowball, remember America, debt snowball wants to attack the lowest balance first. So they want to attack lowest balance. And in the past, some of the complaints that folks used to have is that when you're attacking the lowest balance, sometimes the lowest balance has a low APR. So that was a disadvantage. Okay? So that was a disadvantage. Some people could not stomach the idea of paying off a low balance but the low balance is at 15.99 when there's a 29.99% on the board. So that was a disadvantage for attacking the lowest balance, because a lot of times the lowest balance also have a low APR. Okay, so in order to achieve best of both worlds, it would be a scenario where not only you have the low balance, but you also have high APR, not low APR, but high APR. Okay? Or low balance, highest APR. Okay? That'll be the ideal scenario for a dead snowball group. Okay? Yes, we want to attack the lowest balance, but we do not want to have that disadvantage of having the lowest balance account on a low APR account, which is what we have on the board. The lowest balance on the lower APR account, because 15.99 is not the highest APR. To have both best of both worlds, you would have been a scenario where you have your lowest balance that you want to attack, low balance, but instead of having that disadvantage, you have the advantage of the high APR. So instead of low APR, you have highest APR. Okay, this is best of both worlds for dead snowball. Okay, dead avalanche now. That avalanche wants to attack the highest APR. Okay, and some of the disadvantages, it's not really a disadvantage, but a lot of times in the past when you attacking the highest APR, the highest APR account has a high balance. And for some folks, remember we have different folks with different mentalities. So for some folks, to attack the highest APR, but the highest APR is a high, extremely high balance. So it usually take them too long, okay, to pay off that account, okay. We have some folks, a lot of times they mention stuff about motivation, and for that reason, that might create a problem. It shouldn't be a problem, but that might create a problem for some folks, okay. So to have best of both worlds, it would have been the highest APR that they want to attack, and for the highest APR account to also have not a high balance, which was sort of a disadvantage, but instead of the disadvantage high balance, you want low balance. Okay, that's how you achieve best of both worlds for both that snowball and that avalanche. And again, to review, they want to attack the low balance, but a lot of times the low balance account has low APR, okay, which was a disadvantage because you do not want to attack low balance. So in essence, you're making payment on a 15.99% account when you have a much higher APR account on the board, 29.99. The folks who know about the math know that does not make any sense. Why am I paying a 15.99 when I have almost 30% account on the board? Okay, so that was a disadvantage for that snowball. Okay, the sweet spot to have best of both worlds would be, yes, you want to attack low balance, But instead of having low APR, you want to have highest APR. Okay, that would be the best of both worlds. Okay, and that Avalanche, they want to attack highest APR, but a lot of times the account with the highest APR has such a high balance. Okay, and which used to create some form of disadvantage. Okay, so you want your highest APR to be on the lowest balance, not a high balance. Okay. Now, this problem exists before we came onto the scene. So before Ambroise Method 1.0 and now Ambroise Method 2.0. Okay. How did we solve this problem? Remember, they wanted to achieve best of both worlds. In the case of that Snowball, low balance, highest APR. In the case of this Avalanche, highest APR, lowest balance. How then, America, we were able to bridge the gap in bringing some form of resolutions to this problem was for us via our constant, perpetual cycle of balance transfer, or of transferring or relocating balances from the highest APR to the lowest APR. That's how we're able to bring resolutions to this problem. Remember, the sweet spot is to have both best of both worlds. Okay? Guess what we did? For constantly, perpetually relocating balances from higher APR to lowest APR. Now, all of a sudden now, the lowest APR account for our method, the lowest balance is 4580. So we have 4580, 4580, 4972, and 12,000. So now the lowest balance now is capital 1. So now capital 1 has the lowest balance. And the same capital 1 America has the highest APR. There goes the APR, 29.99, 15, and 8. America. With that Snowball, lowest balance, the lowest balance one was Navy. With that Avalanche, the highest APR was capital 1, but the highest APR has a high balance because 4580 was higher than 2400. You want the sweet spot, which is higher APR, to have the lowest balance. Capital 1 had the highest APR, but Capital 1 has high balance, not low balance. Okay? So Capital 1 had one leg, but not both. Okay? Look at us. When we run Ambroise Method 1.0, not only we have the lower balance, 4580, 4970 to 12,000, that's the lowest balance. We also have the lowest balance on a high APR. Remember, what they yearning to achieve, were able to achieve. We have low balance, capital 1, lowest balance. 45 is lower than 49, 45 is lower than 12. We have highest APR, capital 1 on our example, 29.99, 15.8. So we're able to achieve best of both worlds. So now, to my financial coaches, the folks that were unhappy with that snowball because that snowball could not provide them with the sweet spot, best of both worlds scenario that they were yearning for. And same thing, that Avalanche was not able to provide that to them, we were able to provide that to them. And how we're able to do that? We're able to do that in just one transfer. We brought the higher APR account to a lower balance. Or we bring the lower balance account to a higher APR. That was an ingenious move to be able to satisfy not just half of the population or whatever the percentage was, we were able to satisfy 100% of the population. With these guys, let's assume it's 50-50, so there will be 50%, 50%. With us, everybody is happy, 100%. We give them what they want. We give them the lowest balance that they want. We also give them the higher APR that they want. This is the debt that they want to attack. The debt with the lowest balance, and that same debt also have not just the lowest balance, but the higher APR. So our constant, perpetual, cycle of transferring, okay, we're able to achieve the sweet spot. Now, sometimes, in this example, it only takes one transfer to make that happen. Other example, you might take a few transfers to make that happen, to have the lower balance on the higher APR. That is why, America, we constantly trying to relocate balances from the higher APR to the lower APR. Okay? And in order to facilitate that, we have all different types of balance transfers on our method. And again, we have normal balance transfer. For our purpose, it's a transfer between same account type. For example, a credit card with a credit card. We have mix and match balance transfer. And for our purpose, it's a transfer between different account types. For example, an installment credit account and a revolving credit account. Okay? In addition to these two balance transfers, we also have artificial balance transfers, where we utilize Plastiq. Today we did Plastiq. Melio, similar entities. Okay? And the only lesson I haven't covered with you yet is Ambroise charge pay technique normal and Ambroise charge pay technique inducement, because we've done everything else in those past lessons. Okay? That's how you achieve best of both worlds. Again, America. Constant, perpetual cycle of relocating balances from higher APR account from debt with a high APR account to a debt with a lower APR account. Okay? Which was in this particular example, we're able to achieve what these guys were not able to do. For all those years that they've been on the scene, they were not able to figure it out. Okay? By the grace of God, Ambroise Method 1.0, at Ambroise Method 1.0, we were able to figure it out. And again, America, our method is second to none. This group were struggling to provide the solutions to the masses. We were able to bring solutions to you, America. Okay? All right. I'll give you about 5-10 seconds to take a look at what's on the board, and then we're going to continue with the exercise. All right, America. And another thing, for doing all kind of balance transfers, okay? Remember, America, these are borrowed money, okay? And interest is the cost of borrowing, okay? You borrowed the money, they charge you interest. So for that reason, the APR is the standard. The APR is the barometer. The APR is the measuring stick. That's the account that you need to attack always. Okay? Whatever you have to do, you have to constantly attack that account. All right? All right, America. Again, my name is James Ambroise. I am the author, creator of Ambroise Method 2.0, our advanced version. Ambroise Method 2.0 is a revolutionary debt repayment method that offers greater results in terms of reducing interest cost compared to debt Snowball, debt Avalanche, velocity banking. Thank you, Jesus. Until next time, America. Good morning.